first one, and they're connected. So you grew up with some would say like a unique lifestyle, right? Being in the RV with your family, rock climbing, surfing, all that stuff, traveling the way you did. What's your view if you step back and look at it? Let's say for whatever reason, the way the universe played out, Gabby, you were placed in some different situation where you lived in whatever, pick the location, some traditional middle class suburban lifestyle where you went to public school, you kind of did the path. Your parents both had jobs that they just worked, they went to work, the whole thing. Do you think you would have still gotten here? Do you think you still would have gotten to personal empowerment as your value? Or do you think our environment is so connected to who we become that I could have been talking to a completely different Gabby right now if circumstances were just slightly different?
I would have been an absolutely different Gabby, I
Yeah.
think, for sure. I think the I was saying earlier how like our default is to stay in fear, and our default is to kind of stay in pain and suffering. I think it took so many years of exposure to the unknown, the unknown, the unknown, the unknown, the unknown. Push yourself, push yourself, push yourself, push yourself, but push yourself not in a way to just gain achievement and validation, because that's the thing. If
Mm.
in our society, we are set up to push ourselves for the sake of something extrinsic.
Mm.
And so, in early childhood sports, I was like, I pushed myself, but it was always for the medal. It was always to make the team happy, make the coach happy, to get the trophy for the tournament. Push yourself for the sake of pushing yourself. And it took many years of me being exposed to that to be able to compensate for the pull that I had towards what normality, I guess, that pull towards, well, my friends are doing this, my friends do sports this way, my friends interact with their friends this way,
Mm.
and being pulled into, I want to be like them, I want to be validated by them, I want to be accepted by them. That extrinsic value of the extrinsic value of validation, acceptance, it's all outside of me. It took 7 years of almost daily exposure to having to be personally responsible, acting from that personal power, having to step into the unknown, see what you're capable of. 7 years of every day to be able to compensate for
Mm.
that, how strong that pull is. And so that's why, I try my best to share what I've learned in that process, because I do look at the world and I go, oh, that it's really too bad in many ways that the world is so set up to not support people in being able to overcome their fears.
Almost
Um,
reinforces our fears the way
it
it's set
really
up.
reinforces it.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm like essentially so privileged in many ways, to, even though it was like we didn't have money and all these different ways, I'm so privileged to be exposed and have given the skill set to know how to step into the unknown, and to learn and be able to problem solve, to experience personal power. And so I think in if I had grown up in a different environment, I totally would have stayed the same person. I really would have been the same person I was at 12 years old, as in a decade later.
Throughout life. Yeah.
Um, I would have stayed driven by that achievement, because that was like my entire world revolved around
Mm.
achievement. And I would have just stayed that same person. Like, okay, I achieved to get the validation, and I get to stay in my box of being afraid and quiet, afraid of social rejection, because I get validation through achievement without ever having to step outside my box in terms
Mm.
of my self-expression. And I can totally see myself I would have just stayed just like that, most likely, unless you believe in, like, a destiny of you becoming this person no matter what. But I think for the most part, I would have
Yeah.
just stayed like that unless I had the exposure that I did, for 7 years in that
Yeah.
sense of personal power.
I think it's a super honest and self-aware answer. And I'm curious, I'll ask the question and then I'll explain what I mean. Like sometimes people like, are you okay with it? Like, and by that, I mean, again, somewhat philosophical, like this idea that the circumstances drive so much of our lives. What does that say about us as humans? Because, and in some weird ways, like it starts to get really interesting when you drill down deep enough, because when we talk about finding like our true authentic selves, what we actually value, like our personal empowerment, there's something I think implicit when we, the rhetorical we, talk about those things, that there is some innate essence of who we are, and it's just a matter of tapping into it. And I'm wondering, given the answer you just gave, is that actually right? Is it true that like, because that would suggest that there is an essence of Gabby that like understands the power of personal empowerment and valuing the things you value, that should have came through anyway, even if it would have been harder given your environmental situation. But it's almost like this question of like, is there a true authentic us in what we value? Like, what is that source thing we're actually looking for? Is it not always because it's always coming through our own mind and we're thinking about it? Is it doomed to always be tied to something external, to some environmental thing that told us that's the root of it, but we can never actually get to a true root? Maybe a cynical view on life, I don't know, but what do you think about that?
I love that question, because even though it sounds like my prior question would maybe sway me toward saying there's not who you truly are, I 100% believe that there is something very innately coded into you that's just the essence of who you are. This like essentially it's your soul essence, I would guess you would say. And that soul essence, my mom, who runs a coaching business with me, we always explain, she explains how that soul essence, it's like this beautiful jewel. It's who you are. And when you're a baby and you first came into the world, you're just that beautiful soul essence with nothing obstructing it. But unfortunately, in childhood, when we get this all these belief systems ingrained into us, it adds all these caked on layers of dirt all around it, and now it's got all these layers, and now it's become this rock. And it's a nice rock, but it's not the beautiful jewel that you were born to be. And so I think that's why I believe the value of personal power, because personal power is overcoming fears. And that's what the rock is. Those are the fears that are caked on all around it. So I don't think that just because your environment made you this rock, we're all rocks. Even I'm like, even though I had this privileged life, we still all have these fears surrounding us. But in the pursuit of trying to break down those fears little by little, you get closer back to who you were born to be, who you really are. And so I think that purpose, to me, when I hear the word purpose is any pursuit where you're overcoming fears to return back to who you truly are. Because to me, it's like a journey of returning to ourself. Because at our core, we have this true self that is shiny and beautiful, and it adds so much value to the world to just be you.
Yeah. And that
But
flow
all
state is
these
almost the embodiment of that, right? When you reach that flow state,
exactly
that's that jewel coming out. Yeah.